So Eddie, everyone has enjoyed, in Thailand has enjoyed all the promotions from the government from the We Travel Together scheme. I think now that we are, I think hopefully we can say we're in a post-COVID era. Can you talk about some of the things that have happened and when the market might fully recover? Obviously 2022 was an improving year, but far from its best.
Sure. Well, things are certainly looking optimistic at this point. If we look back at 2022, right, the expectation of inbound traveler numbers had gradually gone up throughout the year. Where we started seeing some traction was mostly around the halfway point of the year, where there was a complete easing of travel restrictions into the country. So the anticipated number was 10 million for 2022, but in actuality, we surpassed it by 12%, where we reached 11.2 million. What was interesting, I thought, about this is that even though we are a ways off from the 40 million 2019 number of inbound travelers, the quarter of that amount that came in, the 11.2 million, generated half the inbound tourism spend just on that quarter amount that came in. So that's pretty optimistic looking. So if we move to 2023, we're seeing that it's looking a little bit more optimistic than the 22.7 million that is expected for 2023. And mainly we think because China opened a little bit more quickly, so this should propel the numbers. And typically in Thailand, tourism and more broadly in the hotels, the numbers rebound pretty quickly. So we're optimistic that this is going to really drive 2023 numbers. But we're still encouraging the government to keep its We Travel Together programs, really try to focus on the domestic component. As we've seen from COVID, you can't dismiss them and have all eggs in one basket, as we've tend to have done in the past a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think that that sort of improvement in performance in the second quarter came through in some of the ADR numbers, particularly in December.
Oh, certainly. I mean, December numbers were very positive looking. We saw that ADR throughout the country on average in 2022 surpassed December 2019 numbers, which is very positive, with the exception of Phuket actually. But Phuket was even better. It wasn't just ADR, but the occupancy level of hotels there in December of 2022 were greater than 2019. So it's a very, very positive sign.
Yeah, and I think that maybe that will have some impact on the transaction volume for 2023. We saw that things slowed down a little in 21 and 2022.
That's right. We are optimistic around 2023, since we're coming out of COVID. Just to give a little bit of context historically, so average around 10 to 12 hotels sold per year, but in 2019-2020, as we were entering into COVID and peaking into COVID, that number dipped down to 7 and 5 hotels sold in 2019 and 2020, respectively, due to the uncertainty around COVID. And then in 2021 and 2022, we definitely saw an uptick of hotel transactions, 18 in 2021 across 11 transactions. And then in 2022, we saw 12 hotels across 10 transactions. And I think what's interesting to point out are a couple things. There were a lot of investors that felt that there were going to be a lot of hotels for sale at the price point they wanted, deep discounts that just didn't really happen for various reasons. One, banks continue to have been supportive of the hotel owners, restructuring debt, delaying timelines for repayment, and generally Thailand tends to be a more fragmented market, say, than Singapore, where there's less relative amount of institutional capital. You have high net worth, and you have families that have a different view of the long term and willing to ride out COVID. So in those years, we didn't see as many transactions from that side of investors, but in 2021 and 22, really the ones that were being sold were by public companies who wanted that cash flow. So for instance, we saw Erewhon selling a part of their portfolio in 2021. We saw Minor International selling out to a partial share sell to a Dubai group in 2021. And 2022, we saw Erewhon again selling a portion of their portfolio within Thailand. So, but really 2022 was highlighted by a couple of transactions bought by Asset World, where they bought the Westin Surrey Bay in Phuket, as well as the Mercure Windsor in Bangkok.
Yeah, and I think maybe the last thing that people are interested in is obviously there's been a lot of adaptation during the COVID period. There's been a lot of job losses in the industry. How's the industry going to look like in 2023? I suspect that there are going to be some changes both in the mindset of the owners, and operators are going to continue to have to meet guest expectations. How are they going to do that?
Sure. Well, COVID has certainly changed the industry. Unfortunately, it had a significant negative impact on the industry, but because of it, I think owners, operators are learning what are the pain points and what should be done. So some of the focal points that they are tackling, one is source markets. Which source markets are they going to go after? Thailand has enjoyed a lot of Chinese inbound in the past, which, you know, when they've come in droves, this had led them to focus sort of more on tourism or tour groups, to be exact. But so now is the idea is to diversify away from that and possibly enter into higher spend markets such as the Middle East, and really look at more FITs instead of just relying on tour groups. So really focusing on diversifying the markets in which to attract inbound. Secondly, another point of pain point that groups have to deal with is labor. Labor is at a significant low point right now. So a couple ways that owners and operators are trying to find a solution to this is maybe use some technology based apps to also improve the guest experience.
The check-in experience,
the check-in, check-out experience, maybe doing it from rooms. Some operators are looking into this.
That would be great.
That'd be great. You know, shorten the time length to get into your room and get refreshed. But also looking how staffing is done. There's been more of, I think, just by necessity, with few number of staff, instead of having individual tasks, having them doing things in separate departments as well. But this also means how to kind of guide and grow the career of staff as well, because of COVID, it's no longer a necessity to work at the hotel. Some back office staff can work at home. So really staying in touch with staff so that they can work in this new way. So keeping an eye on really their wants and needs. They have much more power, much more say than in the past. So these are some ways that groups are focusing on labor, the labor issue.
And then that's going to bring them into the ESG sphere as well, right?
Absolutely. That is a component of ESG, but I think more broadly, ESG is sort of the way of the world is moving to. Operators are becoming more insistent on it. Owners are aware of it and getting used to it. And really, we found that guests will pay for hotels that have an ESG mandate. Healthier choice of foods on menus that have plant-based items, use of green cleaning products, and just better air filtration, things like this. So I think this is another trend that the industry is moving towards. And I think just lastly, sort of operationally, what we're seeing now is that during COVID, the focus was really on getting occupancy because there was so limited amount of guests. So they were trying to drive really long stay contracts to satisfy that demand. But now we're seeing, for instance, service apartments. They are trying to move more towards a short stay type of guest where they can really drive ADR a little bit higher than in the past. So what this means is that there's more competition up against traditional hotels. So really those are the 4 points that we're seeing for now and into 2023.
Okay, well, thank you, Eddie. I'm looking forward to seeing the Q1 numbers and see how many arrivals there have been and see if that can beat Q4.
Again, I think it's very optimistic for 2023. We've got we're finding just on the transactional portion that the bid-ask spread has narrowed between buyer and seller, and on some of the great projects we have. So we're anticipating hopefully that it's going to propel transactions and obviously driven by tourism and how quickly it rebounds.